So here's my question. Who is capable of, or who has done, and who would believe it anyway, who has modeled those different scenarios? Let's call it the Naval model, where everybody under 45 who's healthy just goes back to work today, or soonish. You could argue that there's a modified version of that. If we're really close to having an answer on, one of the therapeutics, or we're really close to knowing if convalescent plasma works, if somehow we had a vaccine that looks like we could have it in a month, if we have something that really, really could matter, and if you just wait a little bit longer, you'll know the answer, well, that would be an argument for risk management, saying, well, let's at least wait for this stuff. That's only a few weeks. Can you just wait for this stuff? You could have that conversation. But generally speaking, let's just compare sending the healthy under 45s to work today-ish, versus the current plan, which is all the governors are going to decide, and it's going to take months and whatever. Without saying that I prefer one of those models over the other, who can tell me that we have studied them? Right? Do you believe that anybody's modeled those two things? And more importantly, do you believe anybody could? Do you believe anybody could model the difference between those two things? Because there's so many unknowns, right? You don't really know how it's going to turn out. I would say it can't be modeled. In other words, you could never reliably know if the Naval under 45 and healthy plan goes to work now is the best one, or this patchwork, governors decide, every situation is different, etc. How do you know which one of those is better? Here is my decision-making process in the face of unknowns. So if you don't know which one's better, but you have two paths and they're very different, how do you decide without the right information? You still have to decide. You don't get to not decide. You have to decide. And you couldn't possibly have the right information, but you still have to decide. What do you do? Number one, you ask yourself which one has a catastrophic downside. And it turns out they both have a catastrophic downside, you sort of in different ways, and it's sort of hard to calculate. So if you can't tell which one has the best upside, and you can't tell which one is the most catastrophic, but you can tell which one opens the economy sooner. That's it, right? Isn't that the end of this? Isn't that the end of the analysis? I would add to that you also have the option of pulling back if it doesn't work, right? So those are the things you would look to. Given that there's great uncertainty, two paths, you cannot tell, you cannot model which one is better. It can't be done. And if you cling to the childlike fairy tale that experts can model the future, you just shouldn't be part of the conversation. It can't be modeled. So if you have two plans that can't be modeled, one of them keeps the economy closed to a potential catastrophe, one of them opens it up at least partially right away, and we could pull back if we need to. Which of those two plans makes sense? Don't ask Dr. Phil. He's not equipped for this. Brilliant guy. By the way, I love Dr. Phil. Brilliant guy. You could criticize specific things he's done, and I have too. But overall, he's a positive force, successful, smart guy who's good for the world. I don't mean to mock Dr. Phil. He's far more good than negative. But it is just a fact, as we observe him talking about this topic, he doesn't have those analytical skills. It's a special kind of thing. Now, let me put it this way. You've got a choice. Let's say Dr. Fauci comes out. I'll just give you this example. Dr. Fauci comes out and says, well, he did. He's obviously backing the president's plan of the 3 phases and letting the governors make individual decisions. So you've got a Dr. Fauci says this is the way to go, but it can't be modeled how it turns out. It can't be. And let's say you've got a Naval Ravikant who has a different skill set. Brilliant guy who has succeeded in lots of different fields and specifically has shown success over and over again of being able to integrate lots of different highly technical opinions and possibilities into businesses, because he's done just that, both in his investments and in building up his own company and companies. So, or let me give you another example. If you're not as familiar with Naval, let's replace that with Elon Musk. Let's say, I don't know if this is the case, but let's say Elon Musk agreed with Naval and said, yeah, this is the plan I would do. And Dr. Fauci says, no, I would do it this way. Which one would you prefer, given that it can't be known? You just can't know. You have to pick, but you can't. Oh, there's a good answer. There's a good answer. Somebody in the comments just said one word: freedom. That is a good analysis. If you can't tell the difference which one is good, you pick freedom. Now, the kicker to it is that the freedom option also gives you a little bit of ability to pull back. If you wait a year, it's just going to be too late. There might not be anything left if you wait a year. But if you start now and say, all right, so let's send these young people back to work, let's see what happens. Hospitals start to get impacted, you pull back a little bit, make an adjustment. But let me just say this. If you would pick Dr. Fauci's recommendation over an Elon Musk or a Naval Ravikant, I'll throw Mark Cuban in there. If you would pick Dr. Fauci's recommendation over whatever Mark Cuban comes up with, are you good with that? Are you good with that? I'll tell you, if it comes down, if we get to a point where Mark Cuban is saying, look, this is the way to go, and Fauci is saying, no, look, this is the way to go, whose side are you going to be on? For me, it's a slam dunk. Because I know Mark Cuban is going to listen to I'm just using him as a stand-in, as a rational player. All right, Mark Cuban is going to listen to all the medical advice and risk and reward. But he's also going to have the bigger context, and he's a more skilled decision maker, I would say. I would say that any of the people I mentioned who are not Dr. Fauci are world-class, proven decision makers in the context of not having all the information. There you go.